You know what time it is? We're all gathered here, so that means it is time for this just in. Now, in our 11th episode, and we have another exciting, action packed, and topical show for you tonight. We'll be looking at the NFL, the NBA, cricket, the English Premier League, and so much. Hopefully, we can get everything packed into this hour. I'm Marsha Boyce, and with me, of course, the gang is all here Justin Marvel and Neil Hoyt. How are you doing, guys, this evening?
Well, I'm good. Can't complain. How you doing, Justin?
Just had some technical difficulty. Had some technical difficulties to work out, so a little
Hmm.
stress before showtime. You know how it goes.
Yeah, we here though. We here.
And Justin, now you can relax and jump right into our first topic. The big news dominating the sporting cycles right now. Cam Newton making his way, or I should say, the New England Patriots striking big and signing Cam Newton on that 1 year deal, reportedly worth approximately $7 million or so. The word is that the deal is pretty sweet. There are a lot of incentives. So Newton going to the Patriots, is he what the Patriots need right now?
I want to say yes, Marsha. Let me just say early o'clock when the Panthers, and I don't think that they really treated Cam well for those 9 years. For a guy that has all of their passing records and the 9 years he spent taking them to their second Super Bowl, I really don't think that the Panthers did him well. They knew that they were going to move on from him, so I figured like the early part of free agency, you should have let him go. It looks now that everyone would have soured on him. The market wasn't big for him as he would have thought, so it really didn't matter. So to answer your question and stop dilly dallying, Marshall, yes, he is exactly what the Patriots needed. I want to say when he was released early, I think that was in March. I
Yeah,
always
in
thought
March.
that was the direction that New England would have gone, either him or Andy Dalton from Cincinnati. And as the months passed by, going into April, May, and I was wondering what's going on. But even though as the time passed, I started to sniff out Bill Belichick a little bit because I knew that there's no way he was going into next season with a Jared Stidham or Brian Hoyer at quarterback. Jared Stidham only having, I think, 4 career passes in the NFL. And then what really clued me in that he eventually was coming for camp was when he went into the draft and didn't take a quarterback of note. I have on my Packers jersey for a reason, not because we're talking the NFL, but because when he was in a position to move up the draft and snatched Jordan Love sitting there where we got him early 30s, I think, or we moved into 29 to get him. Bill Belichick did what Bill Belichick always does. He traded out the first round. And that told me that he did not rank Jordan Love where we did. So from that moment, I told myself, he is driving down the price in the market for Cam Newton to the point where Cam is going to just essentially have to take whatever it is that he offers, which turned out to be a 1 year, very incentive laden 7.5 mil per year deal. And I mean, I haven't seen the incentives, but it looked like Cam will have to hit a lot of benchmarks to make all of that 7.5. I make no mistake. This is going to sound very, very preposterous. What I'm about to say. Cam Newton is by no means Tom Brady. He's not going to replace him. However, I will say this, Neil, and this is going to jump you what I'm about to say. The New England Patriots offense will be better this year with Cam Newton under center than it was last year with Tom Brady. I think a lot of people keep forgetting that Josh McDaniels, he was 2 years in Denver, and one of those years he would have drafted a guy, I know y'all forgot the name, Tim Tebow, a dual threat quarterback, kind of like the mold of a Cam Newton.
Right.
He not only drafted him, but he kind of molded him out. Yeah, I don't think Tim lasted that long. About 2 years, one under Josh McDaniels himself. But I know that Josh is itching to get back to coach a similar dual threat quarterback like him. And I'm not sure if y'all ever heard, Bill Belichick was called him, I think, in the 2015 MVP season, the biggest problem he has ever faced at quarterback. So I know that Bill is really itching and rearing to go with Cam at quarterback. And the reason why I say that the Patriots offense will be better with Cam is because we saw Patriots receivers last season. Their skilled players had problems gaining separation for tight window throws for Tom Brady. With a run heavy offense, and New England's offense has always been run heavy, even all throughout Tom Brady's 20 years in Foxborough. With that run heavy offense, and you having to account for another runner in Cam Newton, you're going to have to bring extra help down in the box to account for Cam as a runner. Because obviously with Tom, you don't have Tom is as stiff as they come. Let's be honest. Tom is not a threat at all to take off. But if we get the Cam Newton that we were even half or three quarters of the Cam Newton that we saw in that MVP season in 2015, you're going to have to bring safety help down in the box, which means that your throws that you're going to have, that's one less defensive back you have to worry about. So the throws you're going to make you're not going to have those tight window throws that Tom Brady had to make all season in 2019. I honestly think that the New England offense is going to be a lot better than what we saw in 2019. And I'm not here to tell you the team is going to be better. I don't expect the team to be a Super Bowl threat. I think they'll make the playoffs. I don't think they're better still than the reigning champs, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they're better than Lamar Jackson's Baltimore Ravens. I don't even think that they're better than the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson. But I still think that the New England Patriots are the cream of the AFC East, and that's all you have to do win your division to get in and have a chance. Cam Newton helps that. He's a veteran quarterback. And I mean, let me go on the other side. I know I've been full of praise here. I will say that, yes, it's the guy who has had 3 surgeries in 3 years. A Liz Frank foot injury, I think on the left foot. Injured non-throwing shoulder, I believe.
Yeah.
And he has lost his last 8 starts. And the last 2 seasons combined, I think he's missed an entire season. If you put those 2 seasons,
essentially, yeah.
Yeah, 16 games in 2 seasons that he's missed. But he's had an entire year last season to sit out and all this off season. I do think that they get a healthy Cam Newton. And if they do indeed get a healthy Cam Newton, I do not see why the New England Patriots at worst can't be the fourth best team in the FC.
Now, Neil, you're talking about a man who won the MVP title in 2015. So from where you sit, do you agree with Justin? Is Cam Newton the man who will take the Patriots to that 12th consecutive AFC East title?
So for me, I actually think that he. So my problem here is not his play on the field. My play here is more so his chemistry with the team off the field, right? So we know that I like to liken the New England Patriots as the Spurs, essentially, right? Where it's about the team, it is about their system, it's about their culture. And I find sometimes Cam Newton is not necessarily focused on team first, right? He is always about the extracurricular activities. He's very flamboyant. He is very
So you think he's going to be a distraction then?
Right. So this is my problem now. My problem is I'm wondering if he's going to be a distraction. I'm wondering, I mean, he's uber talented, as Justin said. He does fit, he will be a better fit for them than Tom Brady last year in that he will be able to scramble. He will be able to keep defenses off balance and guessing as to what he's going to do because he can make the play in the air or with his feet. But my issue here is what Cam Newton are we get off the field? Are we going to get one that is bought in team player? Is he a man that's going to stick it out when all the chips are down, when things are not going as they would like? Or is this the Cam Newton that is going to be like, well, I could as well do me. I could as well, say something inflammatory. I could as well, say something to ignite the fire under my team. I could as well, like within the last few years that he's had with the Carolina Panthers. So, and I know that the Patriots organization have a very short tolerance for that kind of distraction. We saw it with AB. Granted, Cam Newton is not Antonio Brown, but still, it is one of those things where they don't tolerate distraction. Their goal, they're very focused, they're very single-minded. It is all about getting to that championship. It's all about the Super Bowl, right? As a matter of fact, the Patriots is a team that they don't settle for semifinals or conference finals. They want the Super Bowl. So to me, I'm interested to see how Cam kind of integrates with the New England Patriots and how he kind of fits in on and off the field.
I wouldn't worry too much, Neil. I didn't think about that, to be quite honest, so you jumped me there. I will say because Cam is basically on a 1 year prove it deal,
Right.
I think you're going to get the best of him. And we know how Bill Belichick coach teams are already. Um, that being said, we've seen people who've had flamboyant personalities already flourish under Bill. That being said, Rob Gronkowski, who is gone with Tom to down south to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we have seen him, we've seen him wrestle, we've seen him all over the place doing things, TMZ, whatever. Like, Rob is that guy. I think the leash will be shorter for Cam Newton because he's not a guy who's, unlike Rob, who was drafted by the organization and drafted particularly by Bill.
Right.
However, because of the mere fact that you're on a 1 year deal, granted he's only 31, right? But that 1 year deal is basically like you're going to have to prove it to the rest of the NFL, or like, well, you're going to have to sell for backup role. And I'm not sure if y'all realize or already knew cycles, but it came out that this was Cam's only offer. Like the only offer
Yeah.
I got from since March when he was released was from the New England Patriots. So I believe that you are going to get a focused Cam Newton on football and not the extracurriculars.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to say that I can see that Cam is already so focused because the moment that I want to avoid saying that Carolina did him bad, but the moment that Carolina did him bad and released him, you saw Cam putting up these
Yeah.
off these videos one after another. Like you just see him in. You're not seeing him like in a club. You're not seeing him eating or partying. You are seeing him in the gym
He was
working out.
immediately looking for work.
Immediately, like you're just seeing Jim. And then on top of that, now there have been videos released with him working out with Odell Beckham Jr., albeit this being a bad situation to be working out and pairing with people who are not in your household, but all the same, you see how focused that Cam is on football. So Neil, I get you. Like if this was the 2014, 2015 Cam who saw, you know,
Yeah.
right to rip off his state to show
Mm-hmm.
his Superman vest, and maybe I'd have those concerns. But the mere fact that Cam is trying to prove that he is still a starting quarterback in this NFL, then I think you're going to get him on his best behavior.
So have we seen another master stroke by Bill Belichick?
Boy, when he's playing chess, we all play checkers. I don't even think the league had a board this time. Like, there's no checkers involved. Bill was playing chess, and the rest of the league was sleeping. And quite honest, I do not understand how. Granted that Cam is coming off of, they said, 3 major injuries
Three injuries, yeah,
in 3 years,
surgery.
three surgeries in 3 years. Like fine, and the man lost his last 8 starts, and those 8 starts, I think he only had like 9 touchdowns as opposed to 10 interceptions. Yeah, I did my homework tonight, Marsha. However, this is still a man just 5 years removed from winning an MVP. At his healthiest, and I have to assume after all these workout videos that this man is coming back healthy. This man still must be among 20 best quarterbacks in the NFL. In a situation like my division rival Chicago Bears, how when you have questions with Mitch Trubisky, do you allow Cam Newton? And Cam Newton landed at $7.5 million.
Yeah.
What you're seeing all across, people starting like Philip Rivers, who's probably on his last year, is getting 25 million per. Drew Brees and this parting gift is 25 million per. You got the golden opportunity to get a former MVP at $7.5 million. As my friends would call it, RAF. And
Right.
you allowed Bill Belichick to not only sneak in and get him, but continue to drive the price down on him. Like chess and not checkers, Marsh. That's all I can say.
Neil, you agree with Justin?
Yeah, I mean, Bill Belichick has shown that he, especially within the last off season, that he really is playing a different level when it comes to the off season. I mean, by going out and getting AB, even though AB, I think his his off-field
Yeah.
activities kind of stymied him and caused him to lose that contract. But really and truly, had AB kind of stuck to his role and kept his mouth shut and acted accordingly. Imagine having Cam Newton and no and Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown.
I mean, that would have been killer. So I mean, I think Bill Belichick is doing all of his power to make sure that he can assemble a great team, regardless of Tom Brady being at quarterback. And yeah, I mean, it just goes to show team first. That's what all it is for Bill Belichick.
I want Neil, you've been keeping me on my toes tonight. I'm glad you brought up Antonio Brown again. I want to show you how much chess Bill Belichick is really playing with me. I know y'all are not going to believe me on this, but I've said this beforehand. I don't think it was an accident that Antonio Brown ended up in New England last season. Huh? I honestly do believe, and if you know the culture between the Patriots and the Steelers are never going to trade any one of worth to New England. I honestly believe from the get-go that Bill orchestrated for. I mean, I think he was. We've seen now that Antonio Brown doesn't need reason to, as the kids would say, act a fool. But I honestly think, right, that it was set up from the get-go for Antonio Brown to go to somebody else, find a way to get out so that he can get to New England cheap. Because no matter what is going to happen, Pittsburgh will never ever trade with New England.
No.
And what's showing me why I believe this wholeheartedly, a story had come out that I think the Patriots did offer them something around like a second round or something better than what they got eventually from the Raiders. They're Las Vegas Raiders, no, not Oakland. I have to keep reminding myself that, but they got some. Yeah, so sorry, Neil.
Yeah.
But I must remind, like they offered something. I think like a second rounder. Well, Oakland gave, I think they gave Pittsburgh a third rounder for Antonio Brown. Yep. So I have to believe that Bill Belichick orchestrated that move for Antonio Brown to become a Patriot. And all Antonio Brown had to do was to stay off the social media and do not antagonize anyone.
How do you get fired on your day off?
I don't know if it was like Friday part 2. Like,
yeah,
you would have had Tom Brady throwing to Antonio Brown last season, and now Cam Newton throwing to Antonio Brown this season. Yep. Right? Yep. Wow.
Now, speaking of orchestration, this announcement of the Patriots signing Cam Newton came, some might say, minutes before the official league announcement of the penalties for the Patriots following that scandal from last season with the videotaping of the Cincinnati Bengals game, etc. Now, that penalty, when you look at it, they were fined $1.1 million. They've lost a third-round pick in 2021, and their TV crew has now been banned from filming for the coming season. I'm going to start with you, Justin. Do you think this, first of all, do you think the timing of the Cam Newton signing is coincidence in terms of the announcement? Is it a coincidence, or is this another Patriots move?
Of course it's coincidence. Like, the tooth fairy, Santa Claus. Yeah, I believe in all these things, for sure. Hell no, Marcia. There is no way that this entire offseason, and the reports are that this has been in the works, is silently behind the works, because we know Bill Belichick does not do anything publicly.
Rash, yeah. He isn't a rash person.
No.
You're trying to tell me that your biggest off-season move, you just so happen to announce mere minutes before your penalty for yet another league fraction is announced? Just a coincidence? I want to work for New England's PR department. I honestly do.
This is a classic. This is a masterclass in controlling the narrative.
Oh, of course.
Masterclass.
For sure.
I want you to understand how much they have controlled the narrative, Martian. I was on all last night just watching Sports Center for like 2 hours. Flipped on what Sports Center, Get Up, and First Day. Basically all day. Do you know, or would you know, that the story that has dominated the headlines is not New England's latest infraction or penalty or punishment, but Cam Newton signing a 1-year prove-it deal in Foxborough? Go figure. And not checkers. Like, I do not, you know me already, Neil and Marshall. I already do not believe in coincidence. It just cannot be happenstance. That mere moments, and it wasn't even 5 minutes because I had my
Yeah.
phone there, so it was like my ESPN notifications like
Literally, it's
ping.
like, someone called and said, okay, we're releasing the release for the punishment now.
Right.
And the PR office was like, okay, cool, hit
Okay,
send.
boop.
That email was then drafted, everything ready to go, hit send.
I want to say that they probably had that deal with Cam Newton in place for like 2 weeks, and they were just waiting for this punishment to be handed out. Because I'm literally telling you, my ESPN notification was like, ping, ping, like, oh, Cam Newton. So I was about to post it like on our show's Instagram page, and in the middle of me posting, ping. It's like, what? The penalty is now being handed down. Like, oh, forget Cam Newton. Let's put this up quickly. Like it's just a master stroke. I don't know what you have to say after this, Neil, but
Yeah,
well,
I mean, I I can just be saying the same things you're saying. I mean, Bill Belichick is very intent in what he does. He's very precise in what he does. Nothing happens just out of the ordinary or out of the blue, right? So for me to see the series of events and to see how things would have gone down, I would have obviously had to believe that he would have had prior knowledge to what was happening when it comes to this signing, and knowing exactly what would happen when it comes to the infractions and the penalties for what he had done, or what the team had done last season. So, yeah, I mean, this is just another example of just how good Belichick is at his job and how he gets to separate emotion from the overall objective. What's the priority or what the priorities are? So,
So, Justin, though, looking at the actual penalty, do you think it is stern? Is this actually a deterrent when you look at it? $1.1 million, losing a third round draft pick for next year, and your television crew not being able to film for this coming season.
you're making a mockery of this program, Marshall, because you already know my answer. Hell no again. This is not
Because I'm
gonna get.
thinking, $1 million for the Patriots, really,
yeah, 1.5 million. That's a slap in the face.
yeah.
No, it's time to get on my real soapbox. No, yeah. So you can put that camera on me, Neil. Here is my problem, right, with this entire situation. And while I laud Bill Belichick as usual for playing chess and not checkers like the rest of the league does, for the league, the players, and the media to continue to laud this man while the man flaunts the league's integrity in front of everyone's face is ridiculous now. So you're asking me, Marsha, if it's okay, right, to dock the team $1.1 million in fines,
No, it's
losing a
just not
third round?
okay if it is severe enough.
No, hell
Okay.
no. And the problem is, this is a repeat offender, the club and the coach. Where do we start, Marshall? Let's go, I don't know, Spaghetti number one.
Fly gates, deflate gate.
No, let's start with
So many
let's start
gates.
with y'all are laughing, but I'm very annoyed, huh?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Of
Let's start
course.
with Spaghetti. 2008, you are caught filming the Jets sideline, and you are then fined $500,000. That's Bill Belichick himself. The Patriots are further fined $250,000, and you lose a first round pick, and that's your first offense, huh?
Yeah.
You lose a first round pick then. Deflategate, you are found guilty, and that is the quarterback Tom Brady, of deflating footballs for your purpose against Indianapolis Colts. You are fined $1 million. You lose a first round draft pick then, and your starting quarterback is suspended for the first 4 games of the next season. There have been rumors of you having a similar spaghetti that should have been spaghetti one beforehand when you taped the Rams Super Bowl, Rams sideline, or walk through before your first Super Bowl victory. Dubbed, and the team was dubbed at the time, that being the Rams, the greatest show on turf. And you managed somehow, some way, to keep down the team that featured Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, and MVP Kurt Warner. You kept that in check. Not only that, there have been rumors, tales, reports. Every single team that visits Foxborough for any game, it is not a matter from them for It's not a matter of if. They always tell you it is when will their headsets go off during the game. And now you have this offense where your film crew is caught taping the sideline again. Your excuse is that these are not paid employees, but this is a contracted crew. Like, you've admitted that there's fault. So, Marshall, where is that film footage going to go when they film your sideline? Where's it going to go? Back to their offices? Hell no. Of course, it's going to Bill Belichick.
In the archives.
So let me backtrack. So your first offense, your doctor first round pick, a total of $750,000. Your second offense, your doc, a first round pick, your quarterback is suspended 4 games, and you lose $1 million. I know you're going to ask me, Marshall Boyce, on this program on Facebook to ask me if this, your third offense, if $1.1 million and a third round pick.
Third round pick. And we banned the crew.
That, remember, doesn't work for you. It's contracted. And you're asking me if that is severe enough. Hell no. I was expecting multiple first-round picks because you set a precedent at the NFL, right? You hit him the first time with 1 first-round pick. You hit him again with 1 first-round pick. And you've increased the fines. And somehow your increase goes from $1 million to $1.1 million on a third offense. And you reduce the level of draft pick. Are you kidding me? And on top of that, you have a centennial celebration with 100. You're picking 100 best players, coaches, and staff. You not only choose this man who continues to flaunt the league's integrity, you choose this man, but you have him as a presenter on your NFL network announcing players. Are you kidding me, Marshall Boyce? I'd like to remind you during one of our earlier shows, we brought up the Pete Rose case. Pete Rose was found guilty of gambling. No one could find or prove that he was, manipulating the outcome of games.
Yeah.
And Major League Baseball banned this man for life. Bill Belichick, who has clearly found a way to alter the outcome of games by getting a leg up and videotaping people's sidelines, you keep slapping this man on the wrist. And not only are you slapping this man on the wrist, you are celebrating this man's achievements by putting him in the centennial celebrations. Could you imagine this was any other coach, Marshall? What would that person be? They'd be out of the league by now. We're in a situation where we have a black assistant coach like Eric Bieniemy cannot get a job for whatever reason, and you have this man. What do we always talk about? What's the reason that Pete Rose was banned from baseball, Marshall? What's the reason? No answer. What
in terms of perception?
Not just perception. Everyone always says, what's the one thing for a league that you always protect? The integrity, right?
Yeah, reputation.
And what is the one thing that Bill Belichick always continues to flaunt? The integrity of the league. How are you sure that this man is not stealing when games
all
are coming?
Like,
it's so bad, Marsha. I want you to understand that the thing of putting your play calling sheet in front of your face to mask your signal calls is because of him. He is the person who started this trend because of Spygate. And this is what you're going to do. $1.1 million and a third round draft pick. I'm sorry, Neil, for going on my soapbox, but take it from here.
I mean, I quite agree. I don't. I quite literally don't have anything more to say on that. I mean, I do agree that he got away with one, man. That's the truth. I think that the penalties have been very slight. I think at this point in time, I feel as though a third round pick and $1.5 million and not being able to record at games is really, really. I mean, it's lucky that some of these teams, some of these wins, some of these deals that were done, or first round picks, or even like any transactions within the season or anything like that this Cam Newton and AB were able to come to New England, because at the end of the day, still they have shown that they have no remorse, they have no inclination. It's just something that they're going to do, and as Justice said, They're habitual. I remember the habitual line stepper, right? They're habitual line
Habitual
steppers,
line steppers.
right? So to me, you got to penalize them at some point where they will never think about doing it like that
Yeah.
ever again. So
At, so like, at what point, what will you do? Because clearly, as you said, like $1.1 million for Robert Kraft. Forget the money he owns from the Patriots. From his normal businesses, $1.1 million is like the $10 they have in my pocket right now. It's pocket change for him. At what point do you realize you have a problem here? Unless we do something, this will not change.
Yeah.
How do you go, Marsh and Neil? How do you go from a first round draft pick for Spygate, a first round draft pick for Deflategate, and you come here and say, all right, well, third round draft pick?
This one wasn't so bad.
yeah, yeah, this wasn't so bad. And the thing about it is, I actually thought that at this point in time when they were accused of doing it, I was like, yo, these people really playing with fire. But I guess it don't matter because you're the New England Patriots.
And it clearly doesn't matter because, as I said, I do the same. If all you're going to do, right, is just take away a third round draft pick and hit me with $1.1 million, which I probably make in one day during the regular season, well, I'd continue to do it too. And this is the thing is, right, I'm not suggesting or even trying to say that no one else across the league is doing it. The problem
Mhm.
is only one team is getting caught.
That's what I'm saying. So, but the thing about it is, Justin, I would penalize them just because you're so stupid that you keep getting caught. I mean, we had I think it was what it was. It was New Orleans and I think Buccaneers. Those came to mind when they had the bounties on players and that kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
to me, you never heard about them doing that kind of thing again. But it's like the Patriots, like they either dumb or they don't care. Either way, you have to
No,
penalize it.
it's not dumb as the second point, Neil. They do not care,
They do not
and
care.
because
I agree. I agree. They don't care.
if you keep slapping me on the wrist, like that's like saying, like my daughter Malia. If I tell Malia don't do this, and all I do is a slap on the wrist, guess what? She's gonna continue doing it because there is no incentive to do otherwise. And we have seen, as Marcia said, 11 straight AFC divisional titles. You have what, 6 Super Bowls in this span. Obviously, the pros outweigh the cons. Like your penalties are not
Yeah.
restricting me, they're not deterring me from committing the same crime over and over and over again. Like
Don't matter.
it is going to take them banishing Bill Belichick out of the league, and clearly they're not prepared to do
But
this.
but but no, that's a hard one to do, right? How you can manage, arguably, not really arguably, the greatest NFL coach of the modern era, and even
Mhm.
arguably of all time. Like how are
And
you gonna ban the epitome of coaching in the NFL?
and therein lays part of the problem, Neil, or a lot of the problem. We believe because
He's good.
whatever, like
Mhm.
success, basically,
Trumps
merits whatever.
everything else. Yeah.
Trumps everything else. Sorry, Marsha, my
Mhm.
vocab is missing me tonight.
Results
But yeah,
oriented world.
a results oriented world. Like, all right, well, Michael Jordan can physically and mentally abuse his teammates because, well, he's the greatest player of all time.
Right.
So Bill Belichick, greatest coach of all time. So his success trumps whatever foolishness he's doing, and I have to call it foolishness. Like there is no greater insult to a league than to flaunt its integrity, and that is what Bill Belichick does time and time again. Like as we know, like if this is basketball, huh, it'd be no kill code because as we know, basketball isn't won by players. Basketball is just like players. Like you can, like everyone knows what everyone's going to call in a basketball game, but the reality is you win on superstars. So LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. That's what puts you over top because their ability to be better than the next guy. But NFL is all about coaching and execution. And if
Yeah.
I know what you are going to do before you have doing it, that is 90% of the battle right there.
Yep.
Hence why one man has 6 NFL titles and a number of AFC titles, AFC East titles to mention. I could go on and on and on and on, but the show, unfortunately,
Marsha, control the show. Control the show, man.
But
but
I'm glad
unfortunately,
you brought in the NBA, Justin, because I'm now going to move on to the NBA. We have now looking at some of these, the pathways some teams have. The general consensus seems to be, the Celtics, the Pelicans, and the 76ers having an easier route to the playoffs than, say, the Raptors or the Heat or even the Trail Blazers. So looking at those, get it all out. What's your take on the matchups?
I wish Neil Hoyt was right next to me so I could point at him. Because I remember about a month ago, I told him the rumors I heard were that the league was doing everything. It took everything within its power to make sure that the New Orleans Pelicans make that AFC and get in the playoffs. And who are the three teams you just said have the easiest schedule there, Marsha?
Well, supposedly easiest. The Celtics, the Pelicans, and the 76ers.
Neil, well, there you have it. The league, again, is making sure, and you know what? I can't blame you because money is involved. You have lost so much money already. I'm not sure, Marsha, if you have a count there by your computer, but the league has lost so much money already that they had to ensure that one of its money makers, Zion Williamson, gets into the dance. And not just get into the dance, Neil, but the way I see it, Zion will get into the first round, and guess who he's likely to see in that first round?
LeBron James.
And the Los Angeles Lakers, almost called them the Lumber Company Lakers, giving way, giving way where
Sir,
I'm from.
Hey, some respect, sir. Some respect. Some respect.
Please.
Some respect.
Right, but so you have the present coming up against the future. Like Adam Silver must be there, just rubbing his hands together, like good, good. Like it's just too much. Like we have the same, or not the same, but Marshall likes to, and you, Neil, to a lesser extent, like to write me for the conspiracy theories I have. But truth is stranger than fiction. That's all I can say. Like, and
is it a conspiracy or is it good business?
both. Good business outweighing.
Hold on. What is a conspiracy, though?
But that's what I'm saying. Because if you think about it, if you look at seedings for any tournament, the seedings are done in a particular way across the board to certain people reaching as deep into the tournament as possible happens, whether it's tennis, whether it's football, etc. So this is not something that is foreign to sport.
Hold on, Marcia. We all agree, right, that priority number one going into whatever bubble situation the NBA is going into has to be health and safety, correct? Like you're protecting as few people as possible from the spread of coronavirus. Basically, the term goes to flatten the curve. If that were the case, Marcia, if priority number one is indeed health and safety, wouldn't you have just gone straight into the playoffs with your 16 teams? No. You had to
hold on. Remember, priority number one is health for you. For me, from where I sit, priority number one is the resumption of the league in a safe environment. Not that safety is the number one priority. Getting the league resumed is the number one priority.
How did they have just magically come down to this 4 or 5 games outside of the A spot number? This is random number. Just a coincidence today. That's fine. So let's make sure to get this handful of teams that may or may not include Zion Williamson and his Pelicans. Come on, guys. We all know it. And had I told you this 2 months ago that this situation would have happened before the reports, y'all would have told me, oh, come on, Justin, come off the conspiracy theory. And so said, so done. Not only have you made sure to have a net that casts the New Orleans Pelicans to get them in a possible playoff scenario, but you ensured, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. But you ensured basically that Zion Williamson was part of this net. Like, there is no way. I mean, if I'm Adam Silver, I probably would have done the same thing.
Good business. Good business. Now, Neil, your Lakers remain among the front runners. Right. Have you had a chance to peep at the schedule?
I did.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I am not too worried about the schedule. I mean, just like Justin, I find it coincidental that, the schedule favors certain teams and certain teams will stand to benefit. But in the end, I think that at the end of the day, I don't think it matters with these last 8 games when it comes to the Lakers. I am more concerned Well, I am hoping that these games are just for them to get acclimated with, because obviously everybody, we can talk about this later, but everybody is not playing. So I'm actually kind of worried about their building that playoff chemistry and that run to go deeper into the playoffs and to achieve their ultimate goal of winning the championship. So for me, I am thinking that this 8 games for them is just for them to get prepared for the limited team that they have going into the playoffs. And I mean, it doesn't take away from their overall goal. I don't think it will knock them down any further than second at worst. They would have to do an amazing job of losing games. But really and truly, the goal is the finals, and it's just to kind of make sure we have those parts going into the playoffs.
No, Marsha, I'm glad you brought it up. I know you remember our live from Thursday where when we first discovered that everybody would not have been part of this bubble situation would decide to stay home and not play with the Lakers.
And before
I
you go on, just to give our listeners and viewers a sense, there are actually 5 players who have officially opted out so far. So Trevor Ariza, Avery Bradley, Davis Bertans from the Wizards, Willie Cauley-Stein from the Mavericks, and Wilson Chandler from the Nets. So Bradley right now is one of 5.
right, but Bradley basically the only player so far from a playoff contending team. Be serious right here. So last week I would have said that the Lakers will not be able to get past Clippers without Avery Bradley, as weird as it sounds, because as you know, like Avery Bradley is really just a role player, but a very key role player, as I showed Neil on that live or whoever was speaking to. The Lakers starting lineup is plus 13 with Avery Bradley in it. Without him, with Contavious Caldwell Pope, I think they're just about plus 3. Sorry. So I was worried about Neil's chances. I think they can get past everybody else, barring the Clippers. So I dropped him down a peg.
I
But
disagree.
now we're hearing reports now that the Clippers could possibly be without Lou Williams. And I would like to say that Lou Williams is a bigger loss for
A
the Clippers.
I would actually venture to say that of all the contenders, that is the biggest loss for that team in their context of how they do. You're talking about almost 20 points a game coming off the bench. You're talking
Not
about
just
you're talking
oh,
about no, you're talking about a
go
matchup.
ahead.
You're talking about a matchup
See,
nightmare in the second
boss,
unit.
this is what excitement looks like. He just ready now.
Yeah,
Right.
don't get me wrong. I agree with what you're saying, Justin, as it pertains to um, the Lakers missing a big part in Avery Bradley, and whomever they bring in to kind of replace him is not going to be able to fill those shoes. However, I disagree to a point that they can't get past the Clippers as they were constructed. I don't know what the team is looking for if they're not playing with Lou Williams, but as they were constructed with Lou Williams in the lineup, I actually do think that it would come down to their style of play. I think we would have talked about this privately, but depending on their style of play, they can use the Lakers, that is, can use their advantages to kind of overpower the Clippers. Yes, the Clippers have great perimeter defense. You have Paul George, you have Patrick Beverly. Kawhi Leonard is not a slouch. Well, not a slouch. He's a great perimeter defender. So it's one of those things where you have to find a way to get your big men involved. Now you have Anthony Davis, you have JaVale McGee, and you have Dwight Howard. If you can somehow find a way to get those 3 men on the
Hold
court,
on. You're not sure if you're going to have Dwight Howard either, but go ahead, continue.
oh yeah, I forgot about
Got
him.
it.
But this is not that kind of show. I'm going I'm gonna go with Dwight
Yeah,
Howard playing.
yeah.
But as it stands now, if
Keep
they could,
it strictly professional. Yeah.
yes, of course. So if they could find a way to somehow get those 3 guys in a rotation, 2 of them at a time, and you can somehow find a way to manipulate mismatches, and you can find a way to kind of you could even do something like running AD at 3. You could run AD at 3, maybe run. I wouldn't do this for very long. I would do this for a very, very, very short spurt. But I'm saying to give the Clippers something to think about. I would put AD at 3, put Dwight in at 4 or 5, and then whomever at center, whether it be JaVale McGee or one of their other big men. But the idea would be to get them to get away from that perimeter defense and have them have opportunities within the perimeter, and as well as get their big man into foul trouble. So now you have that is the this is why I think that the Lakers can get past the Clippers regardless of whatever. Now that you're telling me that Lou Williams is going to be out, that's a
Maybe,
whole well, yeah,
maybe.
that is a whole different level of that is a different thing. That is I
Let me
really do. Uh, just to finish my point, I really hope that
no
he
no.
does. I really do that. I really hope that he does play because to me that is such a key element of the Clippers and their chances of winning the finals that it would be unfortunate if that piece were not to be in Florida.
Let me update you, Neil. You said that whoever you replace everybody with, well, I know you would have been working hard on the logistics for the show, so you may not have heard that that person indeed to replace everybody seems to be J.R. Smith. He
Right.
has officially signed and will be meeting the
Oh,
team.
okay. So it's official now.
Yes, so he will be
Okay.
meeting the team in Orlando.
Right.
So that is the guy
So
to replace.
no that I know that it's official. I can officially say what I think J.R. Smith will bring in place of Avery Bradley. Obviously, that is a step down in terms of his perimeter defense. In
Oh,
that
for sure.
J.R. Smith, he is not a focused player. There are times where he checks out and he makes mental mistakes. I mean, everybody's gonna point to when he could have put up the ball and get a
Yeah.
right, but yeah, right, right. But really and truly, when you think about some of the and this is outside of that, J.R. Smith has always been that type of player that plays himself, his mind, he checks out mentally, and he doesn't play well on offense and defense. And my fear is that, especially now that he's a year older, especially he's been so far removed from the basketball game, at that speed and that level, I am worried that, I mean, I'm not worried about his offense. I am more worried about his defense. And if you're talking about a deep playoff run and you're talking about playing against the Houston Rockets, you may play against Zion Williamson in the first round, right? Even if you don't play against Zion Williamson, you might play against John Morant. The point remains is that we need to focus J.R. Smith to play great defense. And the thing about J.R. Smith is that if he makes mental mistakes on the defensive end, it will permeate into the offensive end and he will kind of lose his confidence, so to speak, and then it all goes to shambles. So I don't mind J.R. Smith stepping in for Avery Bradley. I don't mind that signing, but again, you have to talk to J.R. Smith and make sure he is focused at all times and keep him on pace, keeping him on the same page.
I wouldn't be too worried about J.R. Smith, only that I figured a man 2 years removed from the league is not going to see as much playing time. Yes, he's technically everybody's replacement, but he was not going to see the minutes that everybody will. I figured that would be Contavious Caldwell Pope.
Right.
So JR will just be picking up the slack off
Yeah.
the bench and filling in whatever minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be KCP to take up those major minutes, I would assume.
Right.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be overly concerned about JR. Now that the news has come out that Lou Williams is 50-50, I'd be extremely concerned if I am the Clippers. And not even for the reason that Neil mentioned, because Neil said basically, almost 20 points or basically 20 points off the bench. It was always one of my main concerns. One of my good friends, Larry Marshall, used to talk about. We've talked about this iteration of Clippers, and one of the biggest concerns of this Clippers team is not the scoring, obviously not the defense. Like you have, as you mentioned, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, arguably two of the best wing defenders in the league, combined with Pat Beverly. The issue is shot creation. And when you look at the Clippers team as they are constructed, sorry, you don't have any playmakers as per se. Like Kawhi Leonard is not. I mean, he's growing and getting better at the role, but he is not what you would call a playmaker. Natural one at least. Neither is Paul George. Essentially, your best playmaker was Lou Williams coming off the bench. I think he leads the team in assists at 5.6 per. When you are missing that, and this is a team full of ISO scores, when you don't have Lou Williams, how are you going to not only get into your, or well, you can get into your offense multiple ways, but the problem is when they lock down on particular players, how are you creating for other players who can't create their own shots? Therein lays the problem for me. Their offense can and will get stagnant without Lou Williams' ball creation and me coming off the bench. When your backup guard is leading your team at 5.6 assists per game, that speaks volumes. I do think if you are talking about who is going to get hit hardest by possible absences, I think you look no further than the Clippers
Yep.
possibly losing Lou Williams for this season. As I said before on Thursday, the Lakers dropping below the Clippers without Avery Bradley. My gosh, I do not know what to say about the Clippers, where they would be without Lou Williams and that ball creation. Yes, I still expect them to be in the Western Conference Finals because you still do have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, etc., Pat Beverly, and your host of bigs. But yeah, you're going to have problems with shot creation.
Yep.
Now, in our remaining minutes, I just want to touch on some other updates. So, the NBA, they've also announced the league and the Players Association coming to an agreement that players will be allowed to replace the names on the back of their jerseys with any kind of social justice message that they would want to. So that's typical NBA in that vein. There've always been relatively proactive or at least accommodating as it related to protests and so forth. But this is the first time we're going to see the protest extended in game because you usually get to do it before the game, during warm up, etc. So now players will be able to put a social justice message on the back of their jerseys. But then also in the US, we're talking about the NFL, we're talking about the NBA, but pro team sport actually returned this weekend with the National Women's Soccer League being the first out of the gate. So I have to put in a plug there for the women. And you saw that the teams in that opening game, the players all took a knee during the national anthem. And that's not surprising if you think about, the US women's national team and the trend that they have set in terms of not only protesting for their own causes, but as well as supporting these kinds of racial injustice causes and so forth. So the National Women's Soccer League first out of the gate in terms of team pro sport returning in the USA. Football, we're speaking about football, but going across the ponds now, things in England are.
Are you actually able to say what you're about to say, Marsha? Can you actually say this?
I'm not allowed. So you can go ahead. You can go ahead for me and just say it and get it out there.
All right, Marsha. Well, you'll never walk alone. Liverpool.
Glory, Man United.
No, Marsha, it's not that show. After 30 years in the wilderness now, Liverpool have finally lifted the EPL, the English Premier League title. And, before the break, they were so far in front.
Yeah.
I always thought, for me, honestly, I thought that they should have just called off the season and handed Liverpool the title. But for whatever,
Champions
obviously
League
money.
Places at stake. And Champions League places at
Champions
stake.
League spaces at stake, as you said, and money involved. They had to return. So it was mathematic that they were just it was eventuality that they were going to lift that trophy. So I want to commend Liverpool and all their fans and supporters. I want to say I'm very happy, and I know you don't feel that way as a Manchester United supporter, Marsha. But I feel happy, Marsha, because I am a person who believes in legacy clubs returning to prominence in all sporting leagues.
Okay.
So I love to see the fact that Liverpool are back on top after 30 years in the wilderness. I love nothing more than to see, certain NFL clubs like the Dallas Cowboys. I can't actually believe I'm saying this, like Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco 49ers eventually hosting a Super Bowl title. Like I do believe in legacy clubs returning to prominence in their leagues. So I want to say actually for the last 5 years I've been rooting for Liverpool to eventually lift that cup. I'm not a big soccer fan, as you would know. I do back Chelsea.
Football.
So sorry. Footy, as you would call it. I'm not a huge footy fan. I back Chelsea just to have a horse in the race.
You can't be supporting Chelsea and Liverpool. Like, what is this?
But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I have a question. So for many years, I have wanted to dip my toe in the EPL, right? And I watch from afar, but I don't really follow any clubs. I don't follow leagues or anything like that. And a few years ago, I wanted to say I would throw my hat in the ring and support the Tottenham Hotspurs. No, everybody is telling me if I do that, I will lose friends. So I want to
Yeah,
ask you.
you have a lot of Arsenal friends, don't you? So yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
wouldn't work
got
out.
I got a lot of Arsenal
Yeah.
friends. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see.
And anything about Liverpool, I mean, not hyping them up or anything, because obviously I'm not going to do that. But you can't fight against, the record and the performances. They're the reigning European champions. They're the reigning World Club champions. Last year, runners up in the league with the most points ever by a team not to win the league. So realistically, with City's record-breaking run, so it isn't, like a what you would call it, a fluke season. They've been building
Nope.
up to this point under Jurgen Klopp. So hopefully this is the downward slide.
And what?
This is the bottom end of the curve now. We'll start to see happening.
No, sorry, Marsha. And what I don't like to see, those fans that don't wish Liverpool well, saying that there's an asterisk on this title. Like, what
Right.
are you talking about? Like,
No,
how?
that one I couldn't argue. They were so, as you mentioned, they were so far ahead. It was a matter of formality. We're just playing the
Right.
numbers.
That's the
Right.
Am
word.
I going to win
That's
this
the word I
week
was
or
looking
next
for.
week? Yeah.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
a mere formality, and they were so far ahead. And even with this break for the coronavirus, my issue is every single team was playing under the same conditions anyhow. So
Yeah.
before the break, there were how many ever points ahead, and then coming back. Like, even if you want to say there was this huge break, every single team is playing under the same circumstances. There are no advantages to be held here with home and away records. It does not matter. Every team played under the same circumstances.
Yep.
You just have to give Jack their jacket. And if you are
Yep.
honestly saying that Liverpool did not deserve this title or there's an asterisk,
You hit
I
it.
think the real asterisk is on your personality. You need to go home and check yourself. Go home and check yourself. You have
Yeah.
honestly mental issues, and I don't want to make fun of mental issues, but you honestly have a problem if you honestly
Yeah.
think that there is an asterisk on Liverpool's title this year.
Right.
Now, with Liverpool having won the title, the race is on for the other big cup in England, that being the FA Cup. The semi-final teams are known, and we have some interesting semi-final matchups. Manchester United will come up against Chelsea. Chelsea haven't beaten United this season. They've only drawn and lost against United. So hopefully we can make it defeat number 4
No, no, Marcia.
for
You
the
know,
FA
there's
Cup
this saying.
semi-finals.
There's this saying that's so
Mm-hmm.
impossible to be undefeated against one team or against after 3 or 4 matchups.
But we
I
haven't
do think
beaten them in every game. Some of the games have drawn, but they haven't beaten us, and that's the important thing.
I do think Christian Pulisic and the boys, we find a way. Ross Barkley and the boys, we find a way
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
to overturn those recent results. Yes,
But bear in mind that for the past couple of seasons, Manchester United is quickly becoming Chelsea's bogey team. So hopefully that run
Bogey team.
continues. Yeah, man. No, man.
no,
Every team
it
has
is
a
true.
bogey team.
Oh,
Yes, it
Every
true.
is
team
true.
Yeah.
has
True.
a
True. Yeah.
bogey
Yeah.
team,
Yeah. Yeah.
And as
and
much
You're
as
right.
I am
so
not,
yeah.
and as much as I'm not big for the fan, Neil, I know enough to know that Manchester United has become that bogey team for us. Even when we're on title runs, they have become that issue for us.
Right.
But hopefully, we can also remind them that there's a reason that we are in fourth, and in that fourth and final Champions League spot, and they're in fifth. So we hopefully then next weekend we can remind them of that situation with a lovely
I
FA
don't
Cup
understand.
victory.
All of a sudden, you're talking about we. Where you get
We.
this we
I
We got.
from?
I told you I have to have a horse in the race, and Chelsea just happens to be it since Claude Makelele had left Real Madrid. Yes, he actually used to be a Real Madrid fan, but
Okay.
I could not continue with the Galacticos era much longer. Like when you get rid of Makelele, like that was it for me. So I came across the pond with Makelele. Well, not across the pond, sorry, but I left Spain with Makelele to Chelsea. That was before we started our title winning runs with Lampard and company. But yeah, like this is weak because it's the I every league must have a horse in the race. I am not a staunch Chelsea supporter by any means or fashion. No, no, no. But for the FA Cup semi-final against a certain red shirt wearing person, yes, it is weak.
Well, that first semi-final is on July 18th. So
Oh, sorry.
Manchester United versus Chelsea, July 18th, and on the 19th, you have another big game, Arsenal versus Manchester City. And City will be looking to come away with a title this season by hook or by crook. So it should be two interesting semi-finals. And then sticking with England, but in another sport, cricket. I know Justin doesn't like to hear me mention the West Indies team in England, but it is what it is. And the CWI Cricket West Indies announcing today that the players will indeed wear Black Lives Matter the logo imprinted on their collars for this series. So to my mind, that's a very good gesture in support of the ongoing global, because it has essentially spread into a global issue and not just a US issue anymore. But what I found interesting today, when the ICC also tweeted, the West Indies will be doing this with pictures of Captain Jason Holder with the Black Lives Matter on his collar, and the Indian cricket fans were livid because from their stance during the World Cup, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, he wanted to wear the insignia of the military insignia on his glove, and the ICC said, no, you can't do that. So the Indian fans are, but if Dhoni was banned or was not allowed to make that kind of statement, why are the West Indian players being allowed to do it? And if to just quickly quote the very specific ICC statute, it says, players and team officials shall not wear, display, or otherwise convey personal messages in their clothing or equipment or otherwise, unless approved in advance by the player, team officials, or the ICC Cricket Operations Department. Approval shall not be granted for messages which relate to political, religious, or racial activities or causes. The ICC shall have the final say in determining whether any such message is approved. So now this one is interesting, and you're seeing something similar happening with the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. What kinds of protests or what support for causes will you allow? Because generally most leagues and organizations have that blanket rule, no protesting, etc., etc.
Right.
But if you allow it for Black Lives Matter, where do you draw that cutoff?
Well, I want to start with this one, Justin. I
Go
think
right ahead, Neil.
right, this is one of these instances where it is bad for business to not allow anyone to support Black Lives Matter. It is just simply bad for business. Not only is it a human issue, this is not a religious, it's not political, it is not educational, it is not regional. It is simply a matter of a human issue. So that coupled with the fact that it being bad for business is so prominent right now in the world to kind of be pro Black Lives Matter, for you as an institution, an organization, a league, a team, to stop your players from representing or supporting Black Lives Matter, you're not looking for a good time in social media or in business or in attendance or in whatever, because players, fans, coaches, everybody will find a way to protest. And you don't want people to protest your sport. You don't want people to protest your club. You don't want people to protest your league. So it's one of those things where it's twofold. It's bad for business, and more importantly, this is a human issue. This is not anything else other than a human issue.
And just before Justin jumps in, just I guess too, one of the distinction can be made where in Dhoni's case it was an ICC tournament, whereas in this case you have a bilateral series between two playing nations. So you have that caveat earlier in the regulation which says it can be approved by the team officials boards. So there may be that gray area there where once the two playing nations agree, then you don't necessarily have an issue. But I know Justin is itching to jump in here, so go right ahead.
I don't have much to say, Marsha, other than that the ICC knows full well what it's doing. I agree with Neil wholeheartedly. Sorry, it is not good for business had they disallowed this. But furthermore, they know that they had to because it was the right thing to do, and they have been doing the wrong thing all the time. And they are only fortunate that the West Indies made the wrong decision. I will say those words, the wrong decision to travel. And they are happy that the West Indies did such. They are basically appeasing, saying, yeah, boy, we are so happy that they come, boy. Like, what would have happened if they didn't? And the West Indies shouldn't have.
Well, you're gonna make the distinction between England cricket and the ICC.
Both England cricket and the ICC are only too happy that the West Indies did not boycott this series. And in all honesty, I'm going to put everything in one neat circle. The West Indies should have boycotted this series. It is only that unfortunate the situation with George Floyd happened after they had already gotten on a plane to go to England. But I do believe that they should have chartered a flight and come right back home afterwards. You're talking about a country, and I'm going to get to ICC, the reason why they allowed this to happen. You're talking about a country who, like, if we're referring to to racism in the U.S., golly, we don't really want to talk about it in England, where they're, I don't want to say that slavery originated with them, but they have enslaved so much of the world. We have the Windrush
Let's say
debacle.
colonized as opposed to enslaved.
They have enslaved so much of the world, Mark. So I chose.
But they haven't enslaved. No, Justin. For the sake of accuracy, they've colonized the world. They didn't enslave the world.
They colonized the world under slavery. If you want to be, let's get
fair. which is fair. We can go with that.
They colonized so much of the world under slavery. For that alone, the Windrush debacle, where they needed so much labor from the Caribbean islands, and then now it suits them to send us back home and say that we were illegal all this time. Then England, together with those same Indians that you called and the Australians, banded together to reduce our profit sharing within the ICC. For them now to lead us during the time of civil unrest to make money for both the ICC and England, I'm telling you, Marshall, the reason that they are allowing that patch to appear is because they are grateful. They knew that their balls were basically in the hands of the WI. But the unfortunate situation is that we did not understand the position of strength that we held, because we should have gone on a charter and come right back home. You want to make a stand, and you know we have said that the NBA players had the best platform by going and playing games to then protest what is going on. The best platform that the West Indies cricketers have in this situation is not a 2x4 patch on their collar that cannot be seen and will not be spoken by or mentioned by those.
Justin, yes, it will be seen, because I'm actually thinking the collar is a much better idea than the sleeve, to be honest.
No,
if you think about it.
I thought that the NBA, they should have put it on the back. Like, you know,
but
like
they don't have
instituted.
But it's test cricket, so they don't have any names at the back.
So you carry a number. You carry a number.
Right, you carry a big number at the back for test cricket.
Right, but not a name.
But not a name.
You could replace that number, because, like, come on, like, numbers are not needed in cricket. Like, you never had numbers to begin with. So you can take out that number and put it with a big insignia. So it is not like that the insignia
that might have just been a logistical challenge, though, where it was easier to take the shirts ready done and get the collar embroidered.
Come on, Marsha. We all know that is a simple process. That's easily done.
Just saying.
The ICC is only too grateful that the West Indies did not do what they should have done and gone on a chartered flight to go home. And that is the real reason. I'm not discounting your reason there, Neil, because I do believe it is bad for business. But the mere fact that they face a possible boycott of that series, the ICC was only too glad to say, well, if I had a choice between a boycott and a patch on a collar, guess what I'm going to take?
Just for clarity for our listeners who might not be as in tune as Justin is, there were no rumors of a West Indies boycott. So I don't want it to spread, okay, the West Indies were possibly boycotting and the Black Lives Matter patch was a compromise.
Of course not. But the ICC just got ahead of the situation, just like
just for clarity. I just want to put that out there for someone who might just be joining.
But just like New England Patriots, ICC made sure to get ahead of the situation. Like, as I said, there was no rumor or possibility of the West Indies boycotting. But just in case, let's appease them. Let us appease them with a simple patch. Because I would take a patch on a collar any day before somebody gets on a plane and comes back home. And remember, Marsha, there is no way the ICC would have sanctioned because the optics alone, in a case in civil unrest and also during a time of the coronavirus, the optics would have looked terrible for the ICC to sanction the West Indies not playing this Test series. So I say to say, I agree with Neil. Business, it would not look good. But the reality is the ICC were only too happy that the West Indies are playing the series, and so too England by extension.
Well, on that note, I would like to say that I'm glad the West Indies are making their mark in whatever way they can to support the Black Lives Matter movement and offer their
You know how
support.
to make a mark? They could make a mark on what's that flight that goes to thing?
British
A
Airways,
Virgin flight.
Virgin,
They
oh Virgin.
they could they could
A
make their mark.
boycott was not on the card, so we will leave Justin Marvel alone with that thinking for tonight. I'm sure he will pick it up on Thursday during the mailbag. So if you want to hear more from Justin on this specific issue, please join us on Thursday night at 8 p.m. on our Instagram or IG Live there, the mailbag. Be sure to send your comments and your questions. You can put them right here in our Facebook Live comment section. Anywhere on Facebook, we'll see it, as well as on Instagram. We're also on Twitter and we're on YouTube. But on that note, that's it for us here tonight on this Just In. I'm Marsha Boyce.
I'm Justin Marvel.
And I'm Neil Hoyt.
And you have a good night.
All right, good night, everybody.